Hey guys, Phil here at Woods Tree Farm. I am over here in the remnants of our sunflower patch, and you can see there's still a couple blooms in here. But I wasn't going to save any seed until I realized a couple things. The first is how easy it is. Like, yeah, it's super easy. So why wouldn't we save the seed? That's one hand. On the other hand, there's some interesting stuff in here that I think we want to get more of. So for example, we bought this like autumn seed blend. There's all these different colors in there, and there's a couple colors that we really like. So we're going to focus on saving seeds from a couple of these. And all of these flowers that are open pollinated, meaning that they're not pollenless flowers, they are just chock full of seeds, and if we can get to it before the birds do, we're going to get a lot of seed. So that's one thing that we're focused on, is just picking and choosing through here some of the most interesting colors of sunflowers. We want to make sure we get some seed for those for next year. The other is with our ProCuts, and I'll talk a little bit more about the ProCuts here in a minute, but let's gather a few of these flowers that are near us here, some of these colorful ones, and I'll show you some of the seed inside. There are seed hulls all over the ground. The birds have been busy. We've got a few of these, like these butter colored ones over here. We really like those. And let's see if there's much seed in them. Yeah, so this one has a few. We'll cut that. And that one actually has some more growing to do before its seed's ready. And then this was one of those kind of orangey colored one. It's pretty dry, and the birds have already started harvesting the seed, for example. Can you see that? That one is completely empty. So not any seed in that. We really like these autumn colored ones here, and I'm thinking we might have beat the birds. So I'm going to bring these flowers home, let them dry out, and we'll get some seed from them, hopefully. Yeah, these are all empty. This one's not. This one's not. So this one, you can actually see inside, it has started to produce seeds. On this flower, the seeds aren't very full, but on this one and that one they are. So I think I'm going to cut a couple of these bigger flowers and let them dry out. So if you look on the inside, I got ants crawling on me. If you look on the inside of a mature flower like this, and you knock off all of those things that are on the inside of the flower, and this one's actually so fresh, none of that stuff's coming off. But the seed is under there. Here's an example. So here's a seed that's just starting to develop. This one is not really ready, and I wanted to pick that to show you how if you pick them too early, you're not really going to have full seeds in there. So the way you can tell is if this stuff, I don't know what this stuff's called, but if you can rub away what's on the flower, you can see the seeds underneath, and you might even be able to start to pull out some of those seeds. When they're green, it's kind of hard to get them out sometimes, but I will get one out here and I will show you. Okay, so I just had to end up breaking off some of the flower, but you can see these purple things are the seeds. And we need to let these dry out. So these flower heads are going to come home with me and they're going to dry out. But this section over here where all the flower heads are drooping over, these were all of our ProCuts. And on the ProCut flowers, they're pretty cool because they are a pollenless flower and they don't make a mess, and they're great as a cut flower. But because they're pollenless, they don't self-pollinate. So you're not going to find much seed in them. And I read online that if you find seed in your ProCuts, they're not going to be pure ProCut seed, because in order to generate a seed, pollen had to come in from another flower on a bee or on a butterfly and pollinate the flower and create that seed. So the bulk of what we see in here are actually just little seed hulls, and there's not a nut inside those seeds. And this one in particular has already gotten picked clean from the birds. Might be, nope, that's another empty one. Yeah, so all the good seeds got picked already from that one. And that's what we found in here. You can see lots of holes in that. All of these holes here are holes where a good seed was and a bird came along and made that his lunch. Oh, here's a couple. All right, let me knock off the rest of this debris here. There's just a couple in here. So what we've been doing, we've been grabbing these seeds and putting them in a jar. Here we go. And I've been finding lots of seeds out around the edges. And what we're doing is, if you just rub your finger along the inside of these, you can feel the firm seed, the full seed. And if it's good and dry, they'll actually just come right out. So the non-full seeds are not firm, they're flexible. So there's, I got 4 ProCut or ProCut hybrid seeds out of this so far. There's a couple. Oh, I dropped one on the ground. Here's one. There's one. There's a big one. So anyway, that's what we've been doing. We've harvested dozens of these already. And some flowers, you only get a handful of seeds out of them. Some flowers, you might get 30, 40, 50 seeds out of them. We've got a small jar going of ProCut seeds. And what we've been doing, we've been picking the seeds, laying them out on the window screen, on an old window screen. And then when the weather's sunny, setting that screen outside and letting those seeds dry out completely before we go and put them in a jar. I'm really curious to see what this gets us, because what everybody says is that you're not going to get a pure ProCut. You might get a pollenless flower, you might not. You might get something that was similar to what you originally grew. You might not. So we're keeping all of that seed separate. And the ProCut seed is actually kind of expensive. So I was hoping initially that we could just harvest seed from these and save a bunch of money. But what we're going to do instead is harvest a bunch of these, save a little bit of money, and we're going to plant those seeds and see what we get. And we're still going to end up buying some ProCuts for next year, just because we do want to have those pure varieties available for people to pick. But I'm really curious to see, and we're going to have to wait a whole year before we find out. And I'm really curious to see what we end up getting from these seeds. So if that experiment sounds interesting to you, you're going to have to subscribe and then make sure you're following us next year sometime. And you'll see the update on that video. And if you're watching this way in the future and you want to know what the update was, just drop a comment down below this video, and if I have that new video ready, I will give you the link directly to it. I know a lot of you people watch the videos well after they're published, and that's just completely normal. So anyway, I am going to show you a couple more seed heads here, some of the full ones of the open pollinated flowers, and I'll show you what it's like to pull those apart. I'll show you my screen drying setup and then how we're going to store them for the winter. So here are sunflowers that we brought home, and when I bring them home, I always peel back all of the petals and any of the green leafy parts of the plant. Here's an example of some that I missed, but this just peels back really easily. And then after it sits out and dries for a couple of days, these seeds will come out really easily. Now these seeds are still a little bit green. They're not completely dried out. I like to get the seeds out now because they're not real prickly, but you do have to be careful not to damage them. So after you get your dry seed out, you try to remove as much of this stuff as you can, and I'm going to move my seed bin out of the way. So this stuff here is just part of the plant, and you don't necessarily want that in your seed mix, but if some gets in there, I don't think it's the end of the world. And once as much of the plant material is moved out of the way, you can actually just flex the flower a little bit and rub your finger on it, and the seeds come right out. On the ProCut sunflowers, you can see how some of these seeds in here look considerably bigger than the others. So these are the only ones that I'm going to focus on getting out. And kind of same thing, you just rub your finger on them after they're dry, and they tend to come right out. And you can also feel the seeds that are full tend to stick up a little bit past the seeds that aren't full. So you can feel them with your fingertip, and as soon as you rub them, they just come right out. So after I've got all my seed done, what I've been doing is just setting it out on this window screen. But I'll use my container here and set it up like that so it gets airflow all the way through it. And if it looks like we're going to get any showers or anything, I'll bring this inside and put it in the garage. One nice thing about using the window screen is that some of that fine chaff, especially as it dries and it breaks apart, easily sifts through the screen, so you can get more pure seed and not as much chaff when you go to store it. And after the seed dries out, we've been storing it in little mason jars. So there's our ProCut mix, and then there's the variety mix, some that I've already dried out. So it looks like I have at least as much here on the window screen as we stored before, so we're going to have lots of seed for next season. Hope you guys enjoyed this one, found the information useful. Stick around. About 10 months from now maybe, we can give you an update on how these seeds do. Thanks for watching. See you on the next one.